Yes, people are slowly coming into the room. So let's wait 2 more minutes, allowing people to enter and join us. Well, I think we can already start. If people are entering, they can join us anyway. Well, okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our second webinar on vocational excellence. For those who have joined us also in the first webinar, welcome back. And for those who didn't, of course, welcome to join us in this second webinar. Jolien, this webinar is organized in the framework of Internationalising Vocational Excellence, and Jolien van Uden from the European Training Foundation will later on explain, after my introduction, the ideas behind this project. It's a European funded project. What is the state of the art and where are we going to? So then you have an idea of why we are here and what you can expect in the next coming weeks and months. I would like to start with some takeaways from the previous webinar, because in this sense, we give the newcomers the opportunity to get more or less on the same page as the other participants. And for those who were present in the previous webinar, it's always to have a good, it's always good to have a fresh up of your minds and your memories. That's the power of repetition. I will share my screen. And we start with the, with the presentation mode. Oops. It's very slow this morning. I can see that it's a Monday morning. There we are. Okay. Willem, can you give me a sign if you can see the screen?
Yeah, everything's ready to go.
Okay, perfect. Well, actually, we have spoken in the previous webinar about where are we going to altogether, because we're speaking about vocational excellence, but what does it actually mean? And we have given some examples of, well, actually with your vocational training, you would like to become better than you are now. You want to anticipate specific regional labor market challenges, anticipate the needs of innovative, inclusive, sustainable economy, becoming more flexible to all kinds of innovations and developments that are going. So in other words, it's a journey that we're going through towards becoming better to anticipate labor market challenges. But the big question is, how are we going to do that? What does it mean, that road towards vocational excellence? And we have said, well, it comprises of several components. We have to have at least a structural international collaboration with industry partners. We need also labor market data and innovations to update our curricula, because if we don't know what the labor market is expecting from us, we don't know what to include in our training programs. So a very close contact with labor market in order to get their input from what they need is crucial. Other types of learning, especially focused on work-based learning, but also applied research, and also developing, for example, short courses for upskilling of workers. Because we're not only focusing on students in this case, but the labor market requires also the need for upskilling of workers, for people who are already working, but have to deal with new developments, with new challenges. These are just a couple of examples of what your road towards vocational excellence includes, but there is, of course, many more. And based on the previous webinar, yes, that's the applied research in VET, we have seen in the previous webinar an example of a common challenge that the VET schools and communities were taking in order to make cities greener. It was the COVE urban greening. And that means that they are undertaking all kinds of activities to make buildings greener. So hanging roofs, green up on or against the walls of buildings. And together with the partnership, they started with a very, very concrete and understandable idea. So I would like to show you now some concrete examples from the previous webinar, from the good practice, how they built their vocational excellence road. So actually, this is an explanation of my previous slides. And they started with a very concrete and understandable idea. And I underlined under concrete and understandable because if you, sometimes we develop ideas which are very broad dreams, but are still too vague. So make it concrete, make it smart, make it understandable for everybody. Because often what we're doing in VET is not obvious for those who are at the public level, at government level, or in private sector. And she said clearly, drink a coffee together and discuss it. So just in an informal setting, try to see if you can commitment from your idea from other partners. She said also make use of your own networks to find partners, but also from networks of networks. So it's becoming a sort of web and of different partners and networks. And I mean, if you have a challenge, there is always somebody in your network who has the answer. So the idea was also from make use of each other's expertise and network. And find partners that complement each other. So it doesn't make sense to have 10 partners with the same expertise, but find partners that can complement each other with strengths. Of course, you have to have governmental institutes, you have the private sector, you have the public sector. But even within the private and public sector, you have partners with different strengths. So find the right partners that complement each other in order to achieve your goals. What they did was also organizing study visits for teachers, because if we expect teachers to provide vocational excellence training, they have to master the subject. So they learn from each other in other situations, in other contexts. And it is also a very good way to build mutual trust and sustainability. So you keep them on board because the trainers are key to provide vocational excellence training. But they also said, well, our students, it's often very difficult to organize all these internships abroad. And what they say, we organize an International Students Week at school and in companies. So they organize 1 week, students come to the Netherlands, or that students go abroad, and then they collaborate together in a very concrete project and assignments. So that could be a very practical, hands-on solution with low effort, but with high impact that can be organized as well in the context of vocational excellence. They developed also in common short courses for upskilling of workers. And this is, for example, a task that could be done in common, because the challenges that they have in the Netherlands were similar as in the other partners in the other European countries. So these short courses, they could start developing from scratch in common, in together. And that makes, of course, life easier, because if you can work in a partnership on things that are easier to do together rather than alone, then it's a benefit as well. They applied also on a very small scale research, applied research. For example, they built simulation environments and practical environments where they had hanging gardens and roof gardens, because often maintenance of gardens, if they're hanging or on the roof, requires different skills than if they're just an ordinary garden. So they rebuilt that in a practical environment where students could practice on how to maintain gardens which are hanging or on top of the roof. So this is a very a practical example that applied research doesn't have to be, well, let's say rocket science. You can keep it very practical, very small, with high impact. And in this way, actually, they were building with small steps the road towards vocational excellence. And this is also exactly what we are going to do. And in this project of internationalizing vocational excellence, because we are going to provide you via knowledge packages, and Jolien will explain it later on more in detail, resources and good practices on how to build partnership, on how to design your training, and how to provide vocational excellence training. That was knowledge package 1, and it was the focus of previous webinar. Today we are going to, today we're going to put the vocational excellence in another context, in the context of ecosystems and smart specialization. So even today, we have a similar program as the last webinar, but of course we have new good practices, and we have a highly interesting case. This image, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very important. And this illustrates also my previous slides and my introduction, because you have a dream and you have a target, but to reach it, you have to take a small step. So with small steps, you can have a very high effort. And that's actually my closing words for the introduction. And I go now over to you, Jolien.
Thank you for this introduction and also this summary of the last webinar. I will also do a bit of repetitions for the ones who already joined us last time. I think I'm sharing my screen now. Can you confirm, Pauline? Yeah, okay, perfect. Because let me introduce the project Internationalizing Vocational Excellence to you. And let me start with introducing the European Training Foundation for you who don't know who we are. We are an EU agency, and we are based in Torino, Italy, and we help transition and developing countries to harness the potential of their human capital development through the reform of education, training, and labor market systems. We were established 30 years ago, and we celebrate that this week. So it's great to also have this webinar in the light of our celebrations of the 30th anniversary. Here you can see the map, and you can see the countries we work with. We work with countries outside the EU, although we are an EU agency. As mentioned, we are based in Italy, and we work with countries in the Eastern Partnership, in Central Asia, the Western Balkans and Turkey, and also in the Southeastern Mediterranean region. As part of the ETF, we established the ETF Network on Excellence in 2020, and we now have over 300 members coming from 54 different countries. And on this map, you can see that they are really representing, or they really have an international dimension coming from many different countries and also different continents. And based on our experiences and the work in ENE, we also started implementing the EU-funded project Internationalising Vocational Excellence. And today's webinar and the series of webinars is part of this project. With the OP project, we aim to support experienced COVs, newcomers, but also VET providers who are interested in becoming a COVI to work on vocational excellence. And we do this through different mechanisms. We offer different support services. And we see it as a way as getting to know where are you, what do you want to achieve, how can you improve yourself, and that maybe at a certain point also to get recognition for what you have achieved. The core of the project is our international self-assessment tool for Centers of Vocational Excellence, IZAT-COVE. And IZAT-COVE consists of 3 dimensions for excellence. You can see them here on the slide: teaching and learning, partnership and coordination, and governance and funding. And then each of these dimensions is divided into criteria. We have 23 criteria in total. And these criteria are then again divided into indicators, which makes it really concrete and measurable. And we have 577 indicators. This often sounds very overwhelming, but we don't expect any center to include all indicators and criteria in their self-assessment, but to select those that are relevant in your context, because what vocational excellence is or means differs from context to context. The tool is based also on the activities of the Erasmus Plus call for Centers of Vocational Excellence. And the tool really supports you in designing the self-assessment, implementing it. It encourages you to include stakeholders. It sends questionnaires to the stakeholders. Then you receive all the data, and based on this data, you will finalize your self-assessment and give your center a score for each of the criteria included in the self-assessment. Just to give you a short introduction, I need to include the sound.
Introducing IZAT-COVE, the new EU tool designed to help vocational institutions chart a course to excellence. Centres of Vocational Excellence are model institutions that represent the best in vocational education across all of their practice: teaching, business partnerships, governance, and more. IZAT-COVE shows what Centres of Vocational Excellence do best and helps you to compare your institution with them. You can conduct self-assessments focused on the specific criteria and indicators most relevant to your goals. IZAT-COVE facilitates the engagement of all your staff and stakeholders in the evaluation process. IZAT-COVE aggregates evidence to help you and your school to make objective self-assessments and share the lessons learned. It assists in target. For institutions that work collaboratively, IZAT-COVE facilitates joint self-assessment, shared targets, and collective improvement. IZAT-COVE's international database can help you to gain insights from peers all over the world, identify growth opportunities, and make progress on the pathway to excellence.
So there was a brief introduction of what you can do with IZAT-COVE. We also are working on getting recognition. And for everyone who participates now in IZAT-COVE, we will offer the Committed to Excellence certificate and badge, which means that you have implemented IZAT-COVE, have developed a development plan. And so it shows that you're committed to work on vocational excellence. In parallel, we are also piloting the Vocational Excellence Certificate with 4 schools at the moment. And here we also start looking at the performance level in relation to vocational excellence. But this is a pilot only at the moment. What we assume is that, for example, when you use IZAT-COVE, you will use it to get a better understanding of what vocational excellence entails. You get an idea of where you are in relation to the criteria and the different dimensions. And then we assume, because you're committed to work on vocational excellence, that you would like to further improve your center. And so we also aim to support that process. And as entry point, there's the website on Centers of Vocational Excellence on the website of DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, where you can find already a lot of information on vocational excellence. We will be further improving the website in the coming month. And all the resources we will develop, they will be published there or linked to that website. So here you can find a description. We are currently working on a vocational excellence library, which should be launched in December. We publish events on vocational excellence, Erasmus Plus Column projects, the information is there. And so this website should really be the entry point of all the resources developed and available. We are also working on a cookbook on vocational excellence. When we started the second phase of this project, we conducted focus group discussions, and many people asked for a roadmap or FAQ or a recipe on how to become a COVI, a Center of Vocational Excellence. Now, what a COVI is can differ from context to context. We have national initiatives. We have, of course, the Erasmus Plus Call for Centers of Vocational Excellence. So instead of focusing on a recipe on how to become a COVI, we are working on a cookbook on vocational excellence. So more in general on how to further enhance your vocational excellence. And this cookbook will consist of cooking tools, like a kind of conditions, the tools you need to be able to make a pizza, because we take the pizza analogy. Basic ingredients. You will need, like what you need for a pizza, you need all the ingredients for the dough, maybe the tomato sauce as the basic on top of the pizza dough. And then we have different recipes on digital VET, green VET, entrepreneurial VET, innovative VET, and inclusive VET. So this is work in progress, and it should be ready in the first quarter of 2025. The other thing I already touched upon is the e-library. We collected over 400 resources, which we mapped against the criteria of ISAT-COVE. And we are currently uploading all these materials in the e-library, which will become available also through the website I mentioned before. And we will also open it up to collect more resources. And many of the first resources we collected, they come from the current Erasmus Plus funded Centers of Vocational Excellence. And then today's work. Because one of the other things we are working on are knowledge packages, because we have this big library with many resources, but what if you would like to focus on a specific topic? And in our needs analysis conducted at the start of the current phase of the project, we identified priority areas mentioned by others we work with who replied to our survey. And we noticed that there was a priority area for making resources more accessible or creating additional resources in the area of teaching and learning. One, skills provision is relevant and responsive to the labor market and social needs, and also to partnership and coordination. One, collaborate sustainably and effectively with enterprise to design, deliver, and improve training and skills acquisition. And that's also what was the focus of our first webinar. And today, we also move a bit to the second part of the criteria we identified as priority areas. And those are both in governance and funding, and they're about engaging actively in the development of local, national, and international skills systems, and also about the joint creation and coordination of skills ecosystems with a strategic approach to smart specialization, innovation, and socio-economic development. And what we realize is that these areas are very interrelated. So we are looking at a kind of way to connect the two different knowledge packages. And with this, I end the introduction to the overall project, and I pass the floor back to Pauline.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your clear explanation, Jolien. We have a very interesting question in the chat from Tuba Akili from Ankara. And it is that in the 4 years, is it possible to share our founded VET Erasmus project on vocational excellence? So is there any chance or any possibility that they can include their good practices as a way of dissemination in this library, in these knowledge packages, in the things that we are going to provide. Is it possible?
Yeah, what we will do, we are now the first step is to get the e-library online, but then we will also start working on a form that you can use to submit your own practices. And then, of course, there will be a review, and then we can include them in the e-library as well. Yeah, so we will invite you and others, everyone who has good practices, good examples, tools, guidelines, case studies to share them with us, and we can include them in the e-library.
Yeah, and indeed, it's not only for dissemination, but you can also build. I mean, you can also build further on your own experiences with other experiences, because that's one of the things that came out of the previous webinar as well. That is keeping yourself up to date about other projects and initiatives can enrich yourself as well, because there is no ending point in vocational excellence. You have to grow. You go on with new innovations, with new partnerships, with new elements. So in that sense, you can definitely use it on one hand for dissemination, but also to make yourself stronger as well. Jolien, I have a question actually, because if people here in the room would like to use the IZCove tool, what do they concretely have to do? Is there a link, a website? Do they have to send an email in this stage? Because we are still in a piloting phase, but imagine that they would like to join one of the pilots.
I will share the link in the chat to our website with more information. There you will also find the email address where you can contact us, and then we can follow up with you.
Okay, that's perfect. And are there any requirements? Do you already have to start, or do you have to be already an advanced Cove, or is it also for the more beginners? But because we know from the registration form that we don't have only advanced Coves here on board, but also a lot of beginners. Is the IZCove tool also for them?
Yeah, everyone can use the IZCove tool. Experienced Covers, relatively newcomers, but also that providers who are interested in becoming one, because the tool can also show you what does it actually mean working on vocational excellence, and you can use it as a kind of baseline. So you can complete the self-assessment for a specific number of criteria, for many criteria. You can select them yourself, and then you can see where you are, and then you can reflect on what you would like to achieve next. And the idea is with the e-library, they are linked to the criteria of IZCove. These knowledge packages are linked to the criteria of IZCove. So these additional resources can then support you in further enhancing the vocational excellence of your center.
Yes, indeed, and that's indeed good to mention, because there are different aspects in this Cove IZCove tool. The government's funding aspects, but also the more technical, how to develop your curricula and how to involve private sector. So there are many aspects of vocational excellence that is touched in this tool, and that can help you further. Last question to you, actually. Do you have some concrete experiences from the previous pilots? What went well? How can we convince all the people here in the room to start?
I think it really showed also the flexibility of the tool. Because we had centers who did a very comprehensive self-assessment, selecting many of the criterion indicators because they really wanted to see where they are in relation to vocational excellence. What we also saw is that there are centers who selected only a specific number of criteria because they said, this is where we are working on now, and this is what we would like to further improve. So you can really adjust the tool based on what you need. And we currently have the tool available in 7 languages, if I'm correct: English, French, Spanish, Italian, Romanian, Polish, German, and Turkish. I think I now even counted 8. Yeah, but already in many languages, because what I said is the tool also supports you to involve stakeholders. And so the tool sends out questionnaires to these different stakeholders, and therefore it's more easy to use the tool when the tool is available in your language. But if not, we also saw many centers who were able to use the tool anyway, either with stakeholders that speak English or one of the other languages, or also by having focus group discussions where you invite students or teachers or maybe some employers to reply to the questions together, and where there's someone available to translate the questions. We will also still translate the tool in more languages.
Okay, that's very good, because then it's even more better accessible for people. And we have actually also a good practice in our chat, because Dr. Kakaber said we're in the process of completing our self-assessment. It's a very useful tool. It guides you, and the indicators provide very good ideas for improvement. So I think that is already underlining the usefulness of the tool. And I'm actually very curious, can everybody type in the chat if you would like to test and would like to use the ISAT-Cove tool for your situation as well? So you can type in the chat yes, or maybe, or no, just to have a quick poll. We already have a yes. Perfect. We also have a maybe. Now, maybe we can convince you today to go to the yes. Okay, give it a try. Perfect. And indeed, if I can imagine that if you've never heard of it and that you're curious, first start with checking out the website if it's something for you. But I can definitely, as Jolien said, you can tune it and tailor it to your needs. So you don't have to go through all the criteria, through all the questions, but you can just select. If you say we're in the beginning, we would like to have only the criteria for finding partners in collaboration, then it's possible. Okay, but I think I have a very nice impression of most of the people who we would like to test it. So
and
that's good.
Maybe to add, also my colleague Serena Tjekkje, she already shared the link to the page in the chat. If you open the page, you will also find a recording on one of the webinars on ISAT-Cove, because today I had to have only a very short introduction, but we have a 1.5 hour webinar only on ISAT-Cove, so you can watch the recording and we explain everything there.
Yes, and I've seen it, and it is very useful because it guides you through the whole process and gives you very good insight in what's in it. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your input as well. We go now over to Willem. Willem, because we would like to hear more about your challenges and ideas and where you are at this moment. So I give the floor to Willem. Willem?
Hello, hello everyone. My name is Willem. I'm a colleague of Pauline's. And today I would like to ask you to participate in the Mentimeter as a little bit to feel a little bit out where everyone stands. As last week we noticed that there's a lot of variation in experience when it comes to working with vocational excellence. There we go. Should be. There we go. And if you want, you can join the Mentimeter when it comes on the screen by scanning the QR code or just going to the website of Mentimeter and putting in the Mentimeter code on top. And I would like to fill the time for everyone to use and get started with the Mentimeter to kind of feel out where everyone stands, what their experience is with your journey to vocational excellence. This weekend, I watched a movie on Nicolas Cage, and I noticed that he had many different faces and many different emotions. So I was thinking maybe we could use him as a little bit of a scale to figure out how everyone feels about their journey to vocational excellence today.
Willem, we don't see, at least I don't see your screen yet.
I do see it.
You do see it? Okay.
It is there.
Me.
Okay, I see some people that are focused. That's very good to see. Excited, stressed. Well, we hope we could help you out with that one. It doesn't always have to be a stressful situation, but I can imagine that it can feel that way. Let's see, we have... Can you let us know if you are in the Mentimeter by at least clicking the thumbs up button, so we can kind of see how far everyone is before we go to the next slide. Okay, as today's webinar is on using innovation as smart specialization to build skills ecosystems. I would like to ask everyone how advanced your understanding is of the concept of skills ecosystems, and if you have worked with the concept before, or if you are working with international skills ecosystems already. So feel free to kind of give us an idea where you stand by using the strongly disagree to strongly agree options on the following 3 questions. There we go. I see we have quite an advanced group with us today. That's nice to hear. Oh, there we are. We are changing again. Okay, so it's a little bit like last week. We have a certain number of people who have only heard of it before and would like to maybe go through a little bit of the concept before we get into the details. Some people who have a very advanced understanding and cooperate within the skills ecosystem with their center of excellence, and a group in the middle who have starting working towards building such an ecosystem. Perhaps we could use this a little bit to focus our case study later on in the project. I think I'll go to the next question, which is something that came up earlier as well during the project, is that a lot of the different participants or different codes have various degrees of autonomy when it comes to cooperating with partners in their ecosystems. Sometimes centers of excellence have very little freedom to move within the country's policy framework. Whereas, for example, in the Netherlands, there's a lot of autonomy, and this gives various degrees of possibilities. And today we would also like to focus a little bit on how can you use the autonomy you have, or if you have less autonomy, how can you still cooperate effectively with private sector stakeholders in your ecosystem to, for example, make sure that you have applied research availabilities or international networks, etc. So I'll give you a little bit of time to fill in this question, and maybe we could weave this into the last little bit of the webinar as well. Okay, I see there's for a lot of participants enough freedom for them to work with private sector stakeholders. So that's nice to see that people do not feel too restricted by it. And now finally, this is something that maybe people from the last webinar remember, but I find it interesting to see what your challenges are when working towards vocational excellence. This information will be definitely taken into account in writing the guidelines that we will be accompanying the knowledge packages in this project. So feel free to briefly, people, that's interesting, to briefly introduce your biggest challenges and keywords when you are working on skills ecosystems or on vocational excellence in general. So we know what we can try to focus on in the knowledge packages. You can see people and sustainable partnerships and relationships. Innovation resistance, that's an interesting one. Giving focus into your project, as in, yes, that's also very difficult sometimes when you have various different stakes in the project and people want to take it in different directions. The autonomy is coming back again. Bureaucracy, maybe that reflects a little bit on the freedom of an autonomy that centers have when it comes to the policy frameworks around them, maybe internally as well. Funding. Okay. And focus. Okay, thank you everyone for your input. I think this gives us a little bit of an idea where we stand when we're talking about skills ecosystems, and perhaps it can help our colleague Federico to choose some examples to give in his guest lecture that comes after this.
Yes, and Willem, I think there were some very, very interesting challenges, also different challenges than we had in our previous webinar. And these challenges, that you should keep on sharing your challenges with us is very important, because these knowledge packages and that cookbook that we are developing, that we're currently developing, they should help you in providing resources that are spot on for your challenge. So if you say, well, I have very, very much difficulties in sustainability of partnerships. For example, you start a project, but the difficulty is always how to keep the fire burning, how to keep our partnership sustainable. Then we can provide resources and examples on that. Also, if it comes to how to develop relevant training content. And so there are also all kind of solutions and practical resources, and the more concrete your challenges, the better we can focus on the resources. So we would like to invite you to keep on sharing your challenges and ideas also in the chat. And also, if you did not type any keywords, but if you would like to reflect on it, please feel free to join. You just raise your hand or you type something in the chat. If it comes to questions and challenges, because that helps us a lot in developing in the next coming weeks the resources, or structuring the resources in a way that they can help you out with the challenges. Okay, we go over now to a very interesting part of the webinar, because now we're going to dive into a good practice, and therefore we have invited Federico Tubiello from Italy. He's from Apro Formazione. And well, Federico, I think it's the best when you introduce yourself, but also your organization and the target groups. In that way, we have an idea of your type of organization, because we have seen that there are many different types of organizations, and then organizations can see, okay, they can compare themselves with you or not. So the floor is over to you. Can you introduce yourself and your organization?
Of course. Thank you, Pauline, for inviting us. I'm Federico Tubiello, and I work for Apro Formazione, which is a vet provider in the northwest of Italy. I'm going to share my screen right now. Now we have the usual challenge of going into presentation mode. Okay. No. Do you see my notes or my presentation at the moment? Okay, let's do it again.
I think it's, oh yeah.
I agree with the Pauline. Is Monday morning for everyone.
Really, really slow. And sometimes everything goes very smoothly. And today it's such a day that everything. Now we see the beautiful Alba, Piedmont, Italy. So I think we're up and running now, Federico.
Yeah. But do you see the presentation? Okay, now I think you see the. Okay, very good.
Works excellent.
So we are a vet provider, as I was saying, based in the northwest of Italy. Here you can see the Italy map, and we are in Piedmont, in the northwest. And this is the view of our city. So also to give a context, a visual context of what it looks like. Alba is a small city of 35,000 inhabitants, and we are located in the region of Piedmont. Aproformazione was founded in 1958 by this priest, Giovanni Battista Gianoglio, who actually was the priest of Ferrero, the company that produced Nutella and that was founded in our city and that still nowadays as an industrial plant. So this relationship with private companies is deeply rooted in our history, because we were founded by the priest that wanted to find a solution for dropout students and give them a future, teaching them a job, so how to learn. So the first students in 1958 were going to the actually Ferrero plants and industries based in the city. Then through the years, we moved in different places, always around Alba. We had different corporate typologies, so we changed a bit. And from 2011, we are a private, no-profit consortium of companies and public bodies. So within our board of administration, we have the municipality of Alba and also other companies of the around area. So again, our relationship with private sector is very much part of our nature, but we are also accredited to the Piedmont region for IVET training and guidance. So we have also a public side within our organization. And our mission, what we do is producing high social impact by training the workforce for our local companies, but also Italian and European citizens. So we have this kind of mission with us. Pauline asked us about target groups. These are numbers from our last social report since 2023, 2024. And numbers can seem huge, but there is a reason behind that. Imagine that our school has 600 initial vet students, so teenagers coming here and going to schools. But we are not only a school; we provide also many different type of services, and so we train, as I said, teenager, young, but also adults, workers, but also neat and unemployed. We focus on fewer opportunities on migrants, and we work a lot with that because the characteristic of our area is sometimes to forget about the last. So our school, since the beginning, as I told you, is focused on the last, on the people who needs more. But also we work with workers for upskill and reskill them. So these 5,000 people are the people that have some kind of training in our company throughout the year. And we work with 1,200 companies last year, but is always around 1,000. And okay, my screen. Okay, but still, different sectors, tourism and hospitality and gastronomy is one of the main sector in our area, but also industrial automation. So we have this kind of two-faced nature, industrial automation on one side and tourism and hospitality on the other. But we work also with healthcare, with third sector, digital communication, beauticians, and hairdresser, and other minor sectors. So this is a little bit what we are. Another important aspect, as I said, we diversify our activities. We have 50% of initial vet students working with going to school to Aproformazione, but we also have 20% of our income comes from training workers within companies. We also upskill and reskill young and adults with different type of courses. And lastly, we have an international project office that works full-time on European and international funded projects, where I work.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Federico, because actually what you are saying is that your organization is, if I understand well, a sort of tripartite board with companies, education and government on board. And you focus also on the target groups, not only on vet students, but also on the needs, unemployed, workers, migrants. So actually you already have very good conditions in place to work towards a COVE. Did it help you, that position?
Oh, yes, of course, it helps a lot to have this kind of heterogenic personality, so working with different target groups. But what helped us a lot was also the international activities. As we are seeing in the maps here, we work in international projects since more than 15 years, and we built over time a partnership of 34 countries with more than 50 partners, and this was one of the main drive that helped us being committed and hopefully reaching the vocational excellence. And one of the examples is the COVE we are working right now since 2022, which is Care About IT, which is a COVE on healthcare, coordinated by schools from the Netherlands. We were working on in our international projects also before.
Okay, so actually not only the position, but also your experiences, your previous experiences in internationalization helped you a lot. And why, can you explain why did you actually move further towards collaborating in skills ecosystem, in these knowledge triangles? And did you also did you also face some challenges in working with these different kind of stakeholders, with government, private sector, public, private? I mean, they are very different in nature, so you must have faced some challenges in that. Can you explain there? Can you explain more about that?
Yep, of course. Okay, let's start from the idea of why being involved in skills ecosystems. It is not something we woke up one morning and we said, okay, we should join one skills ecosystem. We should create one skills ecosystem. We started slowly understanding, and I underline again the importance of international project, the importance of knowledge triangles. For who doesn't know what the knowledge triangle is having training, research, and business working together and exchanging knowledge. And we understood that the hard way, because working only with companies on a local level at a certain point wasn't enough. And we understood, especially working on EU projects, that if you create this channel with research institute, if you put in communication, business and research center, if you transfer innovation from one to the other, okay, the things start moving way better. They are more effective, and also you see the change in companies working with you. And so we started to understand this importance. And since knowledge triangles are at the base of COVE projects in particular, when we had the opportunity to join one of the COVE, we actually analyzed a little bit the healthcare sector in our area. We were already working with the healthcare sector, training workers, but comparing our sector with other sectors from Europe, so again, internationalization was key, we found a skills gap quite important in our area. So we were not prepared enough on digital healthcare as other sectors were in Europe. And so we took advantage. We were also a little bit lucky, let's say, of an ongoing reform process within the healthcare sector in our region. And we said, since we are working on the form, on the structure of our healthcare sector, why not working also on the contents. And so this started this cooperation within Discover in healthcare. And again, the drive that was giving us the willingness of working Discover was actually the same that is driving our company, our organization since the beginning. So providing companies with highly trained workers, and again, as I said in the beginning, European citizen. The fact is that we are facing a rate of change growing every year, and so we simply need to adapt to the needs of the companies and of the workforce that is required. And we realized that working in a skills ecosystem was providing a workforce in line with the needs, the real needs of companies.
Yes, and Federico, you explained that actually your international experience is a very good basis to, and in this case you joined a COVE. But how did it go? Is there someday that they knock on your door to join an existing COVE, or did you active networking to jump in? How did that process go? How do you find each other? Let's say it like that. How do you find each other? Because people don't want to, not everybody wants to set up a COVE by themselves, but how can you join? How do you meet the partners?
Okay, this is a very important question. In our experience, this kind of occasion comes not from social network platform or a networking event, but they come from long collaboration with partners. So this partner that is leading the COVE asked us, because we were working since 8 years before, before 2022 was 8 years before, we worked on many mobility project first, and then a smaller project, and then K2s. So we built actually a relationship of trust and also of knowledge of one of the other, because we think that you need to have reliable partners that you know on board. And so in our experience, everything comes from long-lasting relationship. You build this relationship through time and many years of cooperation, which it doesn't mean that you cannot find a good partners quickly, but in our experience, the best projects comes from the partners we are working with since many years.
Good, great. Well, and your challenges, because I can imagine that there are still a lot of challenges in your ride towards collaboration with the different stakeholders.
Yeah, of course, everything looks very easy and pleasant, but it's not always like that. Of course, I wrote a list of challenges, but I select them a little bit because there were many. Let's start from the sector. Each sector has its own specificities, so there is no a recipe that works every time. You need to be aware of the characteristic of the sector in your territory. So you have to be very realistic and know who you are dealing with. And second of all, the local global perspective we are reaching with this COVID. So working on a local ecosystem together with a global ecosystem with other EU countries is very fashionable and trendy, but it's very difficult to apply, because many times we are a small territory. It's a small city with a whole territory of 150,000 people. So sometimes people are not so open to innovation as they look or they say, or it's not easy to let them understand the importance of international perspective. So sometimes it's very difficult to create this local global perspective. We realize that to face this challenge, it's important to leverage on the key partners that are sensible to international topics, and they can also translate with a more trustful approach, because they are more known on the local partners, this international perspective. So be sure of leverage on the key partners. Another challenge are companies. We work with companies, but companies are very fast. They are very efficient, we have to say so, but it's difficult to keep them engaged. Sometimes they don't answer emails because they have other priorities. So for us, it's important to face this to engage companies, being very precise and detailed about what they have to do and giving them precise time frame. If you involve them for a precise time frame on a precise task, they are going to deliver quickly and efficiently everything you need. But if you ask them to follow, let's say, a series of meetings that last once a week for many months, they are gonna get lost in a way. So it's important to give them the right amount of stimuli, and when you give them stimuli, you have to be very precise on what you want. On the other side, in Discover, we have both companies and public organizations that manage the healthcare in the regions. So we have also the public sector, which I don't know precisely how it is all over Europe, but in Italy it's very complex and hierarchical. You never know if the things you want them to do, when they are going to be done, because sometimes you don't talk with the people that are actually doing the project, and sometimes your inputs get lost in a web of responsibilities and of communication and of difficult relation. And so we realized that it's important to find the individuals within the organization, the public organization, that are very passionate about the project, that are very interested on a personal level also about the project, and make them the real drivers within the whole organization, because they are going to take the further step needed to make things happen. So if on one side companies are very fast and efficient but difficult to engage, public sector is always engaged, but it's difficult to make them deliver what you need. And lastly,
yes, and you were somewhere in the middle.
Exactly. We are somewhere in the middle. And lastly, to solve many challenges, it's important to understand the real needs. So why a partner is involved, what is the interest of this partner being involved in the project. When you know what the real needs are, you know that you are going to have them engaged, because you are making also their interest. So these are a bit of the challenges that come to my mind.
Yeah. Yes, and I recognize some of the challenges that were raised in our previous webinar as well, especially also the final one. So be concrete in what you want to do, and find a common challenge, because that's the only way to keep partners on board, and find partners who have the experience to do that. And I feel you exactly when you say, well, companies, they go very fast. They don't have the time actually till you're finished with a 3-year project with a solution. So they have to have you have to have also some solutions and activities and precise tasks in between. And I think that's a very good suggestion. Can you also explain, because you're now joining not only one cove, but you are joining more of these eco-skill systems. Can you explain more about the impact of these type of collaborations on your organization and target group? What did it bring for you? What is the effect and the impact on your organizations and target groups?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so COVE, we are working with international projects since many years, but COVE had a very big impact in the last 2. And so we have to say that because it opens up our network of partners way more than before, both at local and international level, both with private and public partners. So working on a COVE really helped us finding new partners, but also new projects and initiatives, both at local and on an international level. As you were saying, Pauline, Discover started a series of virtuous practice, good practice. We are starting to develop other COVEs, and we talk briefly about them later. But also we opened up our school network in our region. We didn't have this much cooperation with all the region, but we are having now, because thanks to Discover, we are reaching also part of the region we weren't there before. Of course, the research institutions, we are working more closely with them on also other sectors other than healthcare, and both private organization, in our area, and public organization. This is the things that surprised us most, because we are accredited at the region since many years. We work very closely with the region, but this project helped us enter even in a more close cooperation with the region because of the complexity is required. It requires also the relationship became more deep and complex. Other good impacts is on didactics. For example, we are revising our training course on healthcare thanks to the experience we are gaining from the COVID. Of course, always within the regional programs and the limit of the certification. So, of course, you cannot revolution a training course. You have to understand. We work always within some limits, some restraints, but also we improve the case studies we are gaining from companies. So these are more, especially in the healthcare, digital healthcare sector, these are more real case studies of companies, because we are dealing with those case studies during the development of the project. We increased our knowledge, the knowledge of organization. We had the opportunity to build new digital healthcare labs, and we decide how to structure, what to buy, also based on the experience we are gaining with the COVID. We would have done 2 completely different healthcare labs before the COVID. So now we realize that thanks to the COVID, we have more up-to-date state-of-the-art digital healthcare labs. We also improved the guidance. We acquired more change agent role in our area. We are seen more as a change agent in our area, and this is very good for us, because is what we were doing since the beginning of our mission, since the foundation of our organization. And lastly, but not least, we have a staff that is more competent, is more professional. Because of the complexity of the COVID, we are required to acquire new skills, and we can deal with more complex projects. We can give a more professional look to the people that are training in our facilities every day. So many different impacts. And if we want to talk about the next COVID we are working on, we have a project on rural tourism. So we want to apply for this COVID on rural tourism, which is one of the main phase of our area. And the other one is on sustainable industrial automation and robotics. We are still working on this application, but in the next years, we would like to apply for 2 COVIDs in the 2 main areas that are the identity of our territory.
But that's interesting, because that means actually we speak a lot about the smart specialization. How can you, with research, development, innovation, and education, how can you collaborate together to complement with regional strengths? And I think you raise here a very good opportunity, because your region has a lot of strengths, and how can you benefit and exploit that and use your vocational excellence to anticipate these smart specialization. Can you jump more into depth in that subject?
Yeah, of course. Okay, firstly, to develop some smart specialization in your area, you need to know very well what are your area strengths and weaknesses. I just shared here a picture of our area, because we have to take in account that our area looks and is in a certain way. In this kind, that there are hills, there are a lot of agricultures, there are small towns spread on a rural area. And so we have to face the reality that we are multi-faced territory. We are small, but we are very close to the Alps. We are also very close to the sea. We are a small town, as you can see, is a small city center surrounded by hills. But we have and by the way, if you see the gray part in the picture, this is the Ferrero industrial plant. So we have an industrial plant that is almost as big as the whole city center, if you see that. And so we have to take in account all these characteristics of our area. On one side, Alba is very famous for gastronomy, is a UNESCO heritage site. is a creative city of gastronomy. We are famous for wine and truffles and so on. On the other side, we were where Ferrero was born, so an international company, an extremely huge company, but also other fashion company like Miroglio, and nowadays a lot of industrial poles related to food production, wine production, and to mechanics, precision mechanics especially, are here. So we have these two paces, and we simply represent the faces of the companies of our territory by working on the sector we are more developed in. And so coming into the smart specialization, in a sense, it's always been in our DNA, because we always worked with the strength of our territory, because we are providing workforce to companies, we are providing citizens, and we had to take in account what our characteristics are. In this sense, from a small place, we are where that brings world famous products, the truffles, the Nutella, and so on. We are also doing the same, working locally in a small area, but also working internationally with the partners and companies and institutes and organizations from all over Europe and the world. Another thing that we are doing, we are simply answering to the needs of our area. Is a pretty wealthy area, but wealthy area has as much problem of others, because we need workforce. The unemployment rates are very low. We tend to forget about the last. So frequently in this very beautiful image we give outside, we forget about helping the last. And lastly, we need a sustainable growth, because otherwise tourism and industrial poles can eat our territory if we don't grow sustainably. And to do so, we continuously relate with companies. And the key of doing that, in our perspective, is to develop mutual interest. We have to do their interest as they do ours. So the cooperation must be on two sides. And a simple example is, we really need sustainable growth on rural tourism. We really need to be state-of-the-art and innovative in the industrial precision mechanics, automation, robotics, industrial automation. And we, as school, we are working on two core applications on rural tourism on one side, on sustainable robotics and automation on the others. So for us, smart specialization is to understand the topics, the issues that matters in your area, find the partners through network and long-lasting relationship, and then analyzing the needs of what is needed in order to answer those needs. I know it's a very complex topic, and in a few minutes it's difficult to sum up, but this is our approach.
Yes, I think it's very, very useful elements. And so your recommendation is also more or less start with mapping your strengths of the region and find partners with mutual interest and that are relevant to achieve the objectives. Do you have very concrete recommendations for people here in the room who would like to start? Maybe they already started, or they are more advanced, but they are facing difficulties. What can you give them as a takeaway based on your experiences?
Okay, I will try to be very brief and pragmatic, because it's important to be pragmatic. So we actually, this is a little bit of marketing advice, but we actually are taking very much advantage from the ISAT-COV tool, because it helps to focus on your weaknesses, because weaknesses comes out when you look at those indicators and you try to evaluate yourself. So I recommend everyone to use the tool as self-assessment tool, because it's very useful. Second of all, invest in internationalization, because for us, internationalization has been the main drive of innovation in our school. So most of all came from international activities, so invest on that. As I said already, long-lasting relationship with companies and partners is very important, because from those long-lasting relation comes reliable partners, and also having a long-lasting relation helps with the needs analysis, being updated every year on the needs that changes, what they need, what you have to work on, what is their interest. This can be very easy, but invest in your staff. So remember that having people that are professional, that are focused, that are also interested in the topics you are developing is fundamental. And be ready to fail and face challenges. This is just to remind that we failed and we continue to fail every day, and we simply try to find new ways to solve the challenges we face. So don't get discouraged at any time. And when you are ready, when you have the occasion, and when you think this is the right time, take part in a cover, because in our experience has been an additional drive of change. So we highly recommend that, but please make sure you are ready to do so. This is what
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, because you give us a very, very concrete, not only examples, but also recommendations that people can build in their journey towards vocational excellence. I would like to ask also the audience if there are any questions for Federico. I saw a question in the chat which is more related to Jolien, but before I give the floor to Jolien for the question of Nisrin, I would like to ask you, do you have any questions or things to share with Federico? I see already in the chat request for collaboration and sharing, which is absolutely great, because we just underlined the importance of long-lasting collaborations. So that's perfect.
If any question comes to your mind later on in the day or in the week, you can keep in touch with me with the email, or through IntVE. You can find my contact. So please be free of contacting me if you need more.
Yes, absolutely. We will also share the slides and the recordings afterwards to all the participants, also for those who were not able to join. So it is very much likely that there will be questions afterwards. Thank you, Federico. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pauline.
And it helped me also a lot. So I'm confident that you helped our participants also a step further. And it helps us with building further the knowledge packages to feed them with concrete examples. Jolien, before we go to the wrap up, we still have some couple of minutes. There is a question from Nisrin, and she asks if there is any connection between the ISAT Cove and International VET Quality ISO standards. Is that a question that you can answer?
What I can say is that ISAT Cove is really a self-assessment tool. And so it can help as well in relation to quality ISO standards, but it's often about the quality management standards in the way how you monitor the quality. But ISAT Cove also really focuses on vocational excellence. So it includes also different aspects. What we did with ISAT Cove is also to make the link to the EKVET principles within Europe.
Okay, and for those who do not know what EKVET is, just in one sentence, that we're all on the same page.
So that really also focuses on the different elements you need to take into account when working on when taking care of quality assurance of your system. So which processes, which steps do you take to ensure that you deliver high quality with your VET provision?
Yes, yeah. But I think that I can imagine that there are elements. Indeed, there is, of course, a sort of link with quality assurance, like you have always sort of plan, do, check, act elements in. If you plan something, how are you going to implement it? You have to evaluate it, and then you have to take further measures for improvement. So I think these elements are included as well in the tools. Yes.
Yes. Also, like with, of course, the self-assessment is about the checking phase of the PDCA's cycles. Yeah. And you can use it again to inform to plan your next steps.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's actually a quite good tool to build in your quality assurance system of your organization, because it is a way to check and to evaluate where are you and how can you formulate further measures for improvement. So in that sense, it can be very good integrated in the quality assurance system of your organization. Yes. I think we're coming to an end of this webinar. I think there were very interesting highlights, both from our expert Federico as from your side during the Mentimeter session and in the chat. Jolien, are there some next steps or elements that we can take further? What is your what should we do?
So for us, today's webinar and also the webinar we had about 10 days ago are also the starting point of working on these two knowledge packages. We were very glad to have today Federico Tubiello, but also the previous time the example of Jitske from the platform Urban Greening. And we will use these examples, but also all the inputs you provided through the Mentimeter to further develop these knowledge packages. So the next month, we will further develop these knowledge packages, and we aim to have concrete tools, steps, guidelines on what you can do to further work on establishing these different partnerships, because what we saw with the criteria from ISAT-COVE identified as priority areas to get more information, to get more resources, they really focus on building these skills ecosystem, about creating these partnerships with different actors, different stakeholders. So we are now working with the big support from Pauline and Willem on creating these knowledge packages, having different resources, having different steps you can take into consideration while working on it. And what we will do next is, once these knowledge packages are almost final, is to have 2 more webinars where we will also invite different speakers to share some of the resources they have been working on, also to get your final feedback on these knowledge packages. And the aim is to have these in February. And I think I'm looking at Pauline and Willem now as well, but you might say more about it, Pauline, at the end, is that when you share the link to today's webinar, there will also already be a form where you can leave your contact details if you're interested in joining our webinars in February. We will be able to contact you directly, and otherwise we will, of course, disseminate the webinars during our regular channels.
Yes, that's correct, Jolien. After this webinar, we will obviously send you the link and the presentations, but also a registration form where you can indicate if you're interested in more webinars, other webinars, and the topics, but also if you would like to be kept up to date about the progress of the cookbook and knowledge packages, because actually we just we're now in the phase of developing and collecting information, and we obviously would like to reach as many people as possible, and therefore we need your input as well. Well, I think we have come to an end perfectly within the time, which is always a challenge, but I think we had a very rich content. I hope it was very useful for you too. And well, hopefully we see each other back in a next webinar or otherwise via email or whatsoever. Yes, thank you very much for your participation, and I wish you a very, very good day.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you, Jolien. Bye, Willem. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Federico.
Thank you, Federico. Thank you for your input.
I will leave you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolien. Close the recording, Willem.
Sorry?
You close the recording. You stop the recording.
Yeah, the recording will stop when we all leave the meeting. So if there are no more questions from the participants, we have 3 more minutes on the webinar, but I think we can close the session.